What's up, everybody, and welcome to ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news. I'm Drew Bosley, that's Scott Savage, and you can join us at InsideTheGame.ca, our YouTube channel at Inside the Game Official, podcast services around the globe, with Fired Up Network, of course, and all those beautiful TV streaming platforms around the world. I'm talking about Roku, Amazon Prime, Samsung Plus, Jake's Esports TV, ESTV, and a whole lot more. Scott, we got a whole lot to talk about today. What's on the show?
Yeah, coming up, we have Unity apologizing for a new policy. Oh, I think this is just the beginning, really. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's length has caused a discussion. Star Fox may return someday, I hope. And Titanfall 2's update has caused speculation on a Titanfall 3. Fingers crossed on this one. But.
Oh, man. Yeah, but is the big question right there. This is a big but, the big BUT, Scott, because Titanfall 3, as Vince says, is probably not going to happen anytime soon. I guess time will tell. Dude, right now, though, quick insight. I'm reviewing Mortal Kombat 1. Stay tuned to that. There's a lot to talk about. It's basically a reboot, and I got a lot to say. Can't wait to tell you all about it. I'll tell you a bit about it later. Maybe later tomorrow. But until then, Scott, let's talk about today's show. Let's go. Scott is coming back around, dude. It is Unity apologizes for controversial new pricing scheme. We'll be making changes to the policy. Jody McGregor over at PC Gamer had this to say. When game engine company Unity announced a change to its pricing plan last week, the response from developers was overwhelmingly negative, Scott. Dude, it was an outrage across the internet, wasn't it?
Oh, it was, man. Yeah, it got fired up really quickly.
Big time. The change would mean developers would be charged an increasing fee as they crossed set thresholds every time their games were installed. It was called, among plenty of other things, an astonishing scumbag move. Yep. That's for sure. In addition to criticism from game developers, Unity was sent a, quote, potential threat, end quote, that was serious enough the company closed 2 of its offices and canceled the CEO meeting after receiving it. Okay, that's not cool. Like, I get you don't like the policy, but dude, that's a little extreme, isn't it, Scott?
Yeah, when it gets onto actual threats that are credible enough to get those, well, credible or not is kind of another matter, but just getting the offices shut down, you're putting a lot of people's fear up
Yeah,
on edge for no reason.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous. Man, I can't stand that. Now, Unity has issued an official apology and explained that it will be making changes to the announced policy. Quote, "We heard you." Quote, the statement begins, quote, "We apologize for the confusion and angst the runtime fee policy we announced on Tuesday caused. We are listening, talking to our team members, community, customers, and partners, and we'll be making changes to the policy. We will share an update in a couple of days. Thank you for your honest and critical feedback," end quote. The pricing change was seen as an impending to include games and bundles, giveaways, and subscription services like Game Pass, which would pass the fees back down to developers. It was also criticized for being applied to games that, quote, have already released, as long as they continue to be distributed after new policy goes into effect on January 1st, 2024. Scott, dude, they're backdating this whole policy too.
Yeah, that's the part that seems really, well, the scumbag part to the complaint here. I'm remembering as we're going through here that I think these threats were from an employee on the inside of Unity, not happy based on all the hate they were getting because of this decision. It's such a mess so quickly. Absolutely.
Developers remain critical of this latest statement from Unity. Quote, "There wasn't any confusion," end quote, said Trent of Jump Odyssey Studio League of Geeks. Quote, "In fact, the exact opposite is the concerning issue here, that we all very clearly understood the devastating impact in any developer's sentiment of your new pricing model for far beyond than you ever did or cared to before rolling it out," end quote. Trent calls them right out there, Scott, that Unity just didn't care. They didn't care about the developers. They just wanted more money in their pocket. That's what it came down to. And dude, this was a sad move. So many developers, we talked about it last week too, especially on the indie side, mobile side, focused on Unity because it was quick, it was easy, and it was inexpensive to get into. And now,
just as advertised.
Well, that was their whole deal, right? That was their pitch. come to our engine. It's the easiest way to get into the door. It's the easiest way to make a game, and it's the cheapest way for you to make your money back when you're producing your game. And then all of a sudden, this comes around and go, hey, every time somebody reinstalls the game, we're taking a cut of that. And it's just, man, what a mind-boggling move. And yeah, like I said, Trent calls him right out on it, and good for Trent. I think that makes a ton of sense, as Unity just clearly didn't care. I am curious. We'll keep up on this, Scott, but I am curious now. What policy changes are they going to make? Dude, are they going to completely go backtrack? I've seen people go at them and say, you should just revert right back to what you had and don't even consider any of this at all. Like, do you think that's an option? Is that even a possibility in Unity's mind right now?
I think it's going to have to be in short time, because I think this is going to result in a complete reversal. And that's the only way that you're going to put water on the fire in this case. It's just absolute pandemonium. Everybody's been super angry. I've seen all sorts of developers talk about taking their whole games off. We'll have to delist if this goes through. There's one of many, and it's just, I think the only way is going to be complete reversal of this. And I'm thinking it's going to result in some employment changes.
Yeah, that very well could be the case as well. Time will tell, but yeah, like you mentioned, right? Drinkbox said, hey, buy Cult of Lamb now because we're about to take it off. Like, that was their whole deal, right? Like, we're about to cancel our game now and just not do anything else with it because Unity's doing this, which is a bold statement to say, hey, we're just going to completely remove our game. But that's how fired up the developers have been since the announcement of Unity. And I wonder how many people now are going, yeah, we're looking at Unreal Engine, we're looking at this engine, that engine, or so forth. And man, oh man, yeah, the feedback coming back on this, what a backlash. Scumbag move, Scott, comes to the top, right?
They really shot themselves in the foot.
You sure did. Scott, we saw a little taste of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which has then sparked a whole other conversation. Here's the deal. Rebirth will be almost 3 times bigger than the remake. Oh, man. Anybody else a little worried? Because I know I am. This is Osen Kunk over at VG 24/7. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is sounding pretty big compared to its predecessor, with all content in the gaming coming to almost 100 hours. Compared to Square Enix games of old, Final Fantasy VII's Remake isn't all that long, but you can beat the game in about 30 hours, with maybe an extra 5 or so on top of the dedicated to the game side quest. With Final Fantasy VII Rebirth very likely going the open world route, well, there's a lot of that going on, isn't there, Scott?
Yeah, everything's going open world now.
Yeah.
Even talks about Gears going open world now.
Oh man, yeah, that's a whole other conversation, isn't it? Yeah, but the assumption would be correct, as a comment shared over on the official Final Fantasy VII Twitter account. Director Naoki Hamaguchi touched on the total playtime of the game. Quote, while the main storyline is bigger and more ambitious than the previous game's narrative, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth also embraces the concept of free exploration. Dude, that's a polite word of saying open world.
yeah, lose yourself in between these locations.
Absolutely. While compelling stories, fun mini games, powerful monsters, and so much more to find throughout the world map, he wrote. We hope you will explore this world in great detail, as nearly 100 hours of adventures await. Aye, Scott, 100 hours. Really, at the end of the day, dude, how many times we sink 100 hours into a game these days? Pretty common, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very, very big trend right now, is to make the biggest and largest games. Yep. And Final Fantasy is really no different. I'm kind of surprised that this has caused such a splash, only because Final Fantasy games, in my mind, are just gigantic, ginormous events that people spend 100, 200 hours on already. Yeah. So for this to go that large, is this a step away from, maybe you're a newfound Final Fantasy fan? I think that's fair to say.
Yep.
Is this a step in a comfortable direction? Because I like more of a curated single player linear experience, but
so for me,
I also haven't played 16.
Well, that's where I come in, right? It was Final Fantasy 16 was my shining moment to get into Final Fantasy, and it really turned me around to the point where I've shocked a couple of our friends, right? Like, I've never been the Final Fantasy guy. I played 10. That was my hook then. But even that was like, okay, I'm out. I've had enough of this. 16, man, was an incredible experience. The RPG element was a little take or leave kind of thing. I really didn't feel like there's a big RPG element in it. There's more of like, here's just a new weapon and kind of move on. But it was just one of those. Final Fantasy was the entry, though, that really turned me around, which now has me going back to Final Fantasy VII Remake because I have it. Just haven't played it because we've just been swamped. But I'm gonna go
play that one too.
Yeah, dude, I'm about to get into Final Fantasy VII Remake so I can get ready for Rebirth. Like now I'm in. Now 16 has turned things around. If I like that, I've been told I should like the remake for 7 as well. And this is my move going forward with Final Fantasy, I guess, at this point, right? They really turned me around. They said open world, we're getting rid of the turn-based combat, going more real-time combat, which is something I appreciate a lot more. Not big fan. It's funny because I like some of the, like, dude, Shadow Gambit, The Cursed Crew is one of my favorite games this year. But it is definitely one of those, it's quicker. It's a different style than the turn-based, but you have opportunities to kind of set yourself up and then pick everybody off at once. Almost kind of like the mark and execute situation from Splinter Cell back in the day, right? So you have that kind of, but yeah, if you talk about Gears Tactics, dude, that game was fantastic too. So I have a little bit of, but the turn-based for me is kind of what took me out. And then I saw the Rebirth trailer. And I'm like, yeah, this looks cool. And then there's some karaoke dancing thing. I'm like, oh man, that's right. That's where it takes me out. But again, I don't know if I have to necessarily do that. Maybe I can just get past that part and whatever. But she goes on to say, by my account, that's roughly 3 times as long as Remake, presuming you beat all the side quests too. That's quite the increase in scope, and it's not even clear how much of that is just the main story by itself. Creator-director of the Kingdom Hearts creator Tetsuya also spoke with the PlayStation blog about the game, strongly hinting at where the game ends. Quote, we have mentioned this a few times before, but the order in which you can explore the locations is not the same as the original Final Fantasy VII, and there are some shifts in the order, end quote. For example, oh, Scott, what is that? Wutui? One of the major locations is not part of the route in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and will be visited in the next one. Although there are some changes in the order of the location depicts in this title extended to the Forgotten Capital, where the greatest fate of the Final Fantasy VII awaits you. Interesting to see how they've taken this approach to the remake of such a beloved game. Dude, when you talk about Final Fantasy VII, a game which I've never played, but now has me interested in playing, I've heard others talk about this and where it's leading, and people are like, yo, this is going to be incredible, this, that, and the other. But they've taken it completely out of order of how the original went to. It's funny when we talk about remakes, remasters, and often we get the remaster wishing for a complete remake. We're seeing Metal Gear Solid Delta get a complete remake when it comes over from Metal Gear Solid 3 from back in the day. Hopefully that goes well for us, Scott. I got fingers crossed, man. But here we are with Final Fantasy VII. Took off. A lot of people loved it. Rebirth now continuing on as the continued remake. Looking to switch it up. And I think that's the difference between remaster and remake. Remake allows you to kind of fine-tune, tweak, and completely adjust some of the moments within a game you already know. Why go back to play something that you just have a nostalgia for? A lot of people do it, right? A lot of people love going back in time, playing those games once again. But if you can introduce some new mechanics, we're in a modern age now, maybe that gets more players in, and that's where you get me, right? Now we're in a new era for this whole Final Fantasy game in the setting, 7, and then the Rebirth, and then coming off of 16, here's my chance to maybe become a Final Fantasy fan, which I am after 16.
Oh, it is interesting. I have a lot of respect for this decision based on the property, other than other titles, because like what you say, we're going to do somebody's classic game. Final Fantasy VII is the best game to a lot of people out there. So doing just a simple remaster would be one thing, but a remake that shuffles it all together, I can see why after 20 years, that'd be an interesting idea to make. I'm trying to apply it to other ideas. Zelda, if we went through Ocarina of Time, but you can go through it in any order, I would do that again because I'm a major fan. That's enough of a change to bring me back. So I'm I'm less so worried about this game as if it's going to be packed full and just kind of stuffed.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's going to be just filler.
Well, exactly, right? We're not just going to be playing a bunch of fluff that they tossed in to extend the length of the game. It's actually going to have some meaningful content. And I think that's the exciting part. So for me, my Final Fantasy VII journey is just about to begin, but it's going to be completely different from those who actually played the original. Interesting times, man. Got topic number 3 is StarFox programmer says he's sure the series will return. Chris Scullion over at VGC. StarFox programmer Dylan Cuthbert says he's sure the series will return at some point. Cuthbert previously worked on Agronaut Software and was one of the main programmers on the original StarFox, aka Starwing, back in the day, Scott. Despite being one of Nintendo's most recognizable brands, there hasn't been a new Star Fox game in 7 years. Dude, that's wow. We talked about Star Fox a few times here. The last was Star Fox Zero on the Wii U, which was met with mixed critical response. In a recent interview with VGC, we asked Cuthbert if he expected to see Star Fox coming back at some point soon. Cuthbert replied that he did, but stressed that he didn't feel previous Star Fox games had managed to capture the feeling of the first game. Quote, "Oh, I'm sure it'll return," end quote. I mean, they keep trying, don't they? That's one way of putting it, eh, Scott?
Well, they kind of tried. Star Fox Zero was supposed to be the callback, the return to form.
Right.
And I didn't play much of it myself. I did watch it.
Right.
I think
Okay.
I may still have it somewhere, but it was not the highest quality Nintendo game.
Will we see it on the Switch too?
That's the thing is, I really would have expected to see it on the Switch, because Nintendo does that once per generation thing.
Yes,
here's
they
your
do.
Star Fox for this console. Here's your Pokemon for this console. Here's whatever. But they seem to be breaking those rules now, so I don't know what to believe.
Yeah, I guess time will tell when it comes to Star Fox. But he's like they say though, right? Like Chris says, it's been 7 years since we've seen a Star Fox game. Dude, I have fond memories of playing on the 64. Me, my brother, my cousin, and my dad all hanging out, like just dogfighting in the world of Star Fox, and it was incredible. We laughed for hours on end, but I don't know if you can still capture that magic that it had back then to where we are now with technology, with the gaming industry. And if Star Fox can be that brand that Nintendo needs it to step up to, because like you said, over the last little while, well, 7 years ago, it wasn't really met all that well from critical fans or just fans in general. So do they just move on? Like, do we just maybe not get another Star Fox? There's
I'm wondering is this another chance for Star Fox Adventure? Star Fox Adventure 2, the game that was not a Star Fox game, but famously skinned to be.
Sure.
That is some people's favorite game. So that might be a kind of a weird way of bringing Star Fox back. But I've also played a game, I believe it's called Starlink, which is now a product by Elon. But before that, it was a game very similar. It was very similar to Star Fox, where you're flying around, but you're taking off and landing on different planets and stuff. It had its own thing, but the controller you get with that, if you buy the deluxe version, was Star Fox, the R-Wing, the actual ship.
Wow.
And that was your controller. It was wild. It was such an interesting game, and I wish that took off in a bigger way.
Well, they were trying to capture at that point with Starlink was the Toys to Life model, right? Because they had Disney Infinity, they had Skylanders. I think.
Skylanders.
Right. I was the Disney Infinity guy. I still got my shelf back behind me full of them with Marvel and then Star Wars. Yeah, it's just I love that game, dude. I played with my kids on that system, right? With Disney Infinity. Starlink comes in, you can get these ships, you mount the ships, and that's your ship, and away you go. And it was like, man, this is pretty cool. The game itself was actually decent. It was good. It just, dude, it just didn't take off. Which then leads me back to, can we get Star Fox? They're always talking about amiibos, right? They just did the Nintendo Direct, and now it's 4 or 5 new amiibos coming. Like, that's still a thing? Those are still going? Who does that? Who buys these things? Like, I don't remember last time I even saw an amiibo in a store. So we're getting that. Like, I don't know, dude, so many questions when it comes to Star Fox. I'd love to see him return to form, but I just don't know if it's actually possible or if Nintendo's willing to invest enough to make sure that he stands out and kind of rises up underneath the shadows of Mario.
Yeah, I think we need to do away with any of the kind of chance, the kind of experimental technology, the toys to life.
Yeah.
I think we have to get rid of all that and just bring the most classic, core, simplified Star Fox experience. Because that's what we had on N64, and everybody loved it.
Yep. Scott, some Titanfall 2 updates are going on. This is David Coulson over at Insider Gaming. Recently, the servers for Titanfall 2 have been experiencing issues where players would be disconnected unexpectedly, which is understandably very frustrating. But over the past few days, these issues have been fixed by Respawn, along with various glitches and issues that were present in the game. One of the most interesting things to surface following these fixes is the all-new presence of the plushie mascot Nessie from Apex Legends, which has been seen strewn around Titanfall 2. This seems like a strange thing to do, but it could have a deeper meaning. Along with adding nods to Apex Legends in Titanfall 2, the patch notes for the most recent Apex Legends season ended with a teaser that reads, "Incoming transmission, subject, Nessie," and then just a bunch of numbers, dude. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah. Followed by 3 numbers. People are thinking these have some indication of a Titanfall 3 happening, but I have my disagreement because if there was a 4th number in this, the 3 numbers represent Titanfall 1, 2, and then Apex Legends.
Right.
If there were a 4th number, I would be all aboard this hype ship. But it's not. I don't think this is a strong enough message. Just some regular kind of maintenance, fixing up the game.
Yeah.
I'm glad Respawn is doing that, paying attention after some very awful kind of attention-seeking activities. Respawn is listening, but we've also seen there was a conversation with Vince Zampella about how Titanfall 3 just isn't going to happen soon. It's not the right time.
Yeah.
And I think that still holds true. As much as I want to see another one, and I do, I don't think this is it.
I don't know. There's a lot of speculation going on. The crossover, though, with Titanfall and Apex has obviously been a thing right from the get-go, right? Like,
Yeah.
Apex is part of the Titanfall universe, so it's in there, and they have opportunities to cross that over. I'm still shocked that there's no Titans in Apex. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Is like, wow.
Oh, there's a ton of different pilots that would be from Titanfall 2 that could fit well in there. Mercenaries that continue on. I guess they didn't exist 100 years later, though, whenever Apex is supposed to pick up.
I don't know. A lot of speculations, a lot of rumors. Things will never end. I think it's really fans desperately seeking a Titanfall 3. God, there's a few games today, but dude, it seems like a quiet Monday.
It is, yes. We have Builders of Greece Prologue on PC. Calax also on PC. Gloomhaven is now on the PlayStations, the Xboxes, and Switch. And Humanits. It's a little hard to read. Humanits on PC.
It's some kind of zombie game, I think. Yeah.
Humanity Z? I'm not sure.
Well, that'll wrap up today's show, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us. This has been ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news each and every day. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm Drew. That's Scott.
And we'll see you inside the game.